Once upon a time, there was a little boy named Nathaniel who lived in Florida with his father and their loyal dog named Yellow. Nathaniel and his dad loved nature and camping, and they had been planning a trip for a while. They finally decided to go on a camping trip in a canoe down the Peace River, a tropical river in central Florida. As they paddled down the river, they saw a lot of life around them. Fish were swimming and jumping out of the water, and turtles were basking in the sun on the trees that had fallen into the river. Every now and then, when they got too close, the turtles would jump into the dark, deep water. They even saw a few alligators, but they were careful not to disturb them, especially the big and scary one. The weather was perfect as it was March, and everything was beautiful. But from afar, they saw a strange creature moving through the thick Florida brush. Yellow, the dog, sensed something was up and started growling and barking. Nathaniel and his father remembered that two old-timers at the canoe outpost were talking about a strange creature seen by locals in the deep woods by the river. At that moment, they got scared, not knowing if they had seen a Florida Bigfoot. Despite their fears, they decided to keep going down the river until they found the perfect campsite. They chose a spot high up on a riverbank, far from the river's edge, where they wouldn't have to worry about any alligators. They pitched their tent and started a fire. The night was quickly approaching, and they needed the fire for protection against wildlife and to cook some food. Yellow kept looking around, uneasy, and growling as if he knew something was watching them. As night fell and everything turned black, the campfire was their only source of light. The air got cooler, so they huddled close to the fire, talking and roasting some sausages over the flames. Yellow's demeanor changed with the night. He didn't want to wander around the campsite anymore and just kept looking into the dark brush, growling at something. Suddenly, they heard the sound of something crashing through the brush behind them. It was big and heavy, and they heard the sound of sticks cracking under its weight. Yellow, being a small but mighty and fearless dog, ran to confront the creature. Nathaniel and his father screamed, "No, Yellow, no! Come back!" But Yellow didn't listen. As a huge silhouette appeared out of the dark, coming in their direction, they were freaking out. Yellow got in front of them to protect them from this freak of nature. The creature slowed down but was still coming towards them. As the light from the campfire shone on its face, they saw its two horns. It was a lost cow that had seen the fire and was just curious to see what was going on. Nathaniel and his father breathed a sigh of relief, and they all had a good laugh. Nathaniel and his dad learned that it's always good to be cautious, but not to let fear take over their imagination. They continued their trip down the Peace River, enjoying the beauty of nature around them, and making memories that would last a lifetime. Years later, Nathaniel and his father would sit by the campfire reminiscing about their camping trip on the Peace River in central Florida. They would laugh as they recalled the time when they thought they had encountered the Florida Bigfoot. They would still remember how their dog, Yellow, bravely stood in front of them to protect them from what they thought was a terrifying creature. They would joke about how they thought they were going to be the next big news story about a Bigfoot sighting, only to find out that it was just a lost cow. They would both agree that it was a memorable moment from their camping trip, and that they would never forget it. As they continued to laugh and reminisce, they would also talk about how much they loved camping and being in nature. They would remember all of the wildlife they saw on their trip, from the fish jumping in the river to the turtles basking on the logs. They would talk about how beautiful it was to be surrounded by nature, and how it was a great escape from the hustle and bustle of everyday life. In the end, they would both agree that their camping trip on the Peace River was one of the best times they ever had. And while they may have thought they had encountered the Florida Bigfoot, they would always remember it as a funny and memorable moment that they would cherish forever.